T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kush's Corner here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network, the coolest reptile network in the world. We are back live again. Thank you to everybody for your patience the last couple of weeks with these pre-recorded episodes, but I'm definitely excited to be back live here on Wednesday night. And of course, tonight I'm joined by Mr. Joe DeStefano of Meteoric Serpents and the Colubrid Corruption podcast. We got a lot of cool topics to get into tonight. One is definitely Joe's decision to transition its collection to being exclusively colubrid based, and some of the projects he's working on as well. Obviously, the Texas rat snakes and others. Talk about some podcasting stuff as well. Got a lot of cool stuff to get into tonight with Joe. But before we get into that, as always, USARC. So USARC is the organization that is fighting for our rights to keep our reptiles, to run our reptile businesses, and to live this lifestyle. Check out usarc.org for everything you need to know about the organization. That website is also where you can find alerts on any pieces of legislation, either introduced at the national level or at local levels, as well as progress updates on any pieces of legislation. usarc.org is also where you can become a member of the organization. As a community, we have strength in numbers, and the more people that are behind the cause, the better. And tonight we are presented to you by Workshop Reptilium, a new sponsor here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network for 2026. And we are very fortunate to have them on board. Josh and Trish Hansen and the whole family over there at Workshop Reptilium are doing some incredible work with many different species, be that super dwarf and dwarf reticulated pythons, Boland's pythons, green anacondas. The list goes on and on. Not only are they working with some of the most cutting edge species in herpetoculture, they're also taking an approach that I frankly am, very inspired by, using large planted naturalistic enclosures and really going above and beyond to every extent possible to provide the best for the animals. So check out Workshop Reptilium on all their forms of social media, and we are very grateful to have them as a sponsor here on the network. And here we are. Thank you to everybody who is tuned in live. Thank you to everyone who is already in the live comments. If you are here on YouTube, if you are not already, please subscribe to the channel. A new podcast drops every single day of the week here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network. So if you are a reptile podcast fan, you have come to the right place. Like, comment, share, do all that good stuff. We most appreciate it. But if you are more like myself and are an audio only podcast fan, we are also on all of the major platforms, be that Spotify, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcast from. You can find the Trap Talk Reptile Network. A follow and a 5-star review on any of those platforms would be most appreciated. And with all of that housekeeping out of the way, let's bring Joe onto the show. What's going on, dude? Thank you for being here with me tonight.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I enjoy your podcast. You've been on mine, so yep. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is I've been meaning to ask you to come on the show for quite a while. And honestly, like within days of when I was going to, Adam posted the episode that you guys did. And I was like, God, yeah. I gotta
so. Well, the thing is, what's funny about that? Because Adam records his like so far in advance. So by the time that came out, we had probably recorded it a month earlier. So yeah, but either way, no, it's a pleasure to be here. Like I said, I enjoy your show. So I'm glad to do this.
Absolutely, man. So, plenty of people have probably either, heard your show or some of your episodes here on Trap Talk. But for anyone who isn't aware, kind of give us your backstory. What was your introduction into reptiles, and kind of, how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah. So, as I always say, my story is probably a little bit different than other people in the nature of I wasn't finding snakes in the backyard and stuff like that. I'm from Queens, New York. So the concrete jungle, not a ton of wildlife there besides some birds and squirrels. But I grew up loving animals. I was saying from when I was a kid that I wanted to be a vet. Obviously, I'm not in vet school, so that's not true. I did not follow through with that. But either way, I grew up really enjoying animals. I loved fish. I had a fish tank, and our local pet store is a place called Paradise Aquarium. There was one time, it's actually coming up on 15 years now. There was one time we were in that store, probably looking at fish or fish supplies, and we went into the back where they had the reptile section and came across this little Texas rat snake for $35. Mm-hmm. And I was like to my dad, I was like, Dad, look how cheap it is. Let's get this snake. And that's what really started it. And we got that animal. I still have her today. So she's going on 16 this year, which is really
awesome.
Cool. It was a 2010 animal, which is cool to say because I have nothing that's nearly as old as her. But it went like for a long time because I was still young, having no other reptiles besides her.
Okay.
Later, at some point, I had gotten a California king snake for Christmas, which that animal I don't have anymore. Then when I left this part out. Then when I started high school, I started working at that pet store that the original snake came from. So I was working in there. We had a decent reptile section. I was in there always helping breed and take care of bearded dragons, corn snakes, king snakes, all the kind of basics. That's where I really got a lot of my hands-on experience with reptiles. And even though they weren't mine, like I was doing everything to keep and breed them essentially. Yeah. So though I don't count them under my own belt, like I was a part of that at the very least. So I got that experience. That's how I learned to kind of do everything when it came to breeding. Then I bred for the first time in like 2017. I had brought my original Texas rat to the pet store where I worked to breed with another Texas rat. I got eggs, I got babies, I hatched babies, all good, super cool. Then I started getting my own animals. So I had picked up like a scaleless Texas rat snake. Okay. The next year I had picked up a scaleless leucistic Texas rat snake. In 2019, I bred my own two snakes together, the scaleless to my original girl. 2019, I did hatch a scaleless Texas rat snake. So all this time, this 2010 animal was het for scaleless. I had no idea. Got her for $35. And the obsession really kicked. But then going down the road, in 2021, right? Yeah, 2021, my family had moved to Florida, Boca Raton, South Florida. And down there, obviously, Florida is the mecca when it comes to reptiles, right? I was into all this stuff. I only had 5 animals when I moved down there. Okay. So, yeah, literally 5 snakes. It was 4 Texas rats and a bamboo rat snake. Went into one of the local pet stores, which is a decent known store down there for South Florida, and got my first ball python. So I decided to dive into that world a little bit. I started acquiring animals, but at the same time, I was acquiring more colubrids as well. A few more, but either way, it was kind of like mixed from there. But I started diving deep into the ball python thing. And as time went on, more ball pythons, more colubrids in the collection. Now I have a pretty decent sized collection, and I've been breeding stuff consistently since, 2023? No, 2022. Cool. I've had like consistent production to some extent. Nice. But now, obviously, as the title implies, I'm actually parting with the ball pythons and really focusing on the colubrid stuff, which I've been leaning more towards over the last couple of years. I had dimmed down my ball python projects even to solely the hypo puzzle project. I had a bunch of other stuff too, but I had slimmed down to just that because I was like, you know what, that's what I'm going to work hard. And I came to the point more recently where I was like, You know what? I don't think the ball python thing is just doing it for me anymore.
Yeah, sure.
And I wasn't feeling that passion there. But I was feeling it for the colubrids, and obviously I've been doing the podcast for the last couple years. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of it, and that's how I got to where I'm at. I recently moved back to New York earlier in 2025. It's almost a year now. But yeah, that's where I'm at.
How old are you?
25.
Okay.
Late birthday. I'm born in 2000.
How late?
December.
Okay. All right. So you're a few months younger than me. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So very similar timelines. I believe 2010 was when I got my first snake as well, ball python, and he's to my left right now. So
nice.
But what I find fascinating, and I can only imagine there are very, very few instances like yours where your first snake ends up being like the species you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Did you even know what a Texas rat was when you bought that snake at the pet store when you were 10 or 9, maybe?
Not at all. What I did was I looked at the price and I was like, okay, that's cheap. And that was my selling point to my dad. And I said, let's get this. And we went home that day with the snake. Yeah. I mean, irresponsible kind of thinking back on it. I didn't really know much, but obviously it worked out.
Yeah. Wow. So then I guess from that point, when did you realize like, all right, there are these morphs and there are people who are breeding them, they're scaleless. Like when did that cross your radar?
Yeah, that was probably more so when I was working at that pet store job, and it was just learning a lot more about things. Okay. I had started going to White Plains because that's like local to me. And I started seeing more. That's where I got like the next couple Texas rats that I got. I'll be honest, even though I've been into this for so long, I've only really been a part of the reptile community since 2021.
Okay.
I was always like, just me doing my own thing, like super low-key hobby pet keeper. Of course, I knew what like morph market was. I knew what king snake and fauna were at the time. But yeah, I didn't really dive into this whole community thing until a few years ago.
Okay. So you were working at that pet store in high school?
Yeah. A little bit through college too. I did little stints here and there. My old boss always welcomed me back, but nice. Yeah.
Okay. So then from that point at the pet store, were your eyes opened? I guess before that, I'll preface that by saying, like going to shows like White Plains, when did that kind of cross your radar?
The first White Plains I'd been to, it was with my parents, probably 2015 or 2016, something like that.
Okay.
I also kind of left out the part where getting to this point today, I was watching a lot of snake bites back in the day. Watching a ton of Brian Barczyk and like showing my parents like, look at this, like this is what I want to do. And like, that was really a huge part of it that like I kind of forget sometimes. It just like slips past, but like that was really a huge where I started learning about a ton of species. And yeah,
that's funny. Yeah, literally a direct parallel. Man, I probably was still 9 years old, and I watched a video where like Brian's opening was like, people ask me all the time, how do I pay for all this? So, well, I breed snakes for a living. And that was like, the bomb went off my head, like, what? Yeah. What the hell are you talking about? And then, like, watching like the entire catalog on the computer in the living room at home, just, parents like, this will pass, right? And like, yeah.
My parents probably wish the same thing, but now that I'm out of the house, they can't really say anything to me anymore.
Very true. So I guess then when did it really cross your radar that there was this greater community and people who are doing this professionally and all that?
So obviously, like, because of Barczyk, I was definitely aware that people were doing it on this kind of level, but when I moved to Florida, then I started building the ball pythons. That's when I found like Justin Kabelka and like other ball python YouTubers. I found Trap Talk, I want to say like late 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe that that's about right.
Okay.
That's when I really started getting into it. Like creating meteoric serpents didn't happen until later 2022.
Okay.
So yeah, I kind of like once I saw it, like I dove right in. And obviously all the knowledge I had built over the years, although, a little bit, I felt like I was a little bit ahead of the curve compared to the people who were getting in like right at COVID time. I had
Sure.
just been learning about this stuff for
Yeah.
years. Yeah, YouTube, the pet shop, all that stuff. So
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's kind of interesting because that's a perspective that I don't have because I was kind of already like neck deep in the industry by the time COVID hit.
yeah,
Yeah, that must have been interesting to kind of like because frankly at that point in my life I was so damn busy. It was hard to pay attention to a lot of stuff, but obviously we all felt just the groundswell of the industry at the time. So what was that like as somebody who was newer but not as new as these people who are like, oh, I have nothing to do. What are these snakes all about? I can make $1 million breeding ball pythons to each other in tubs. Whoa.
yeah. Well, I definitely saw a good bit of that, and honestly, like by definition, like I am one of those COVID breeders, but I've been into it for longer than that. If that like
Nah,
makes sense.
I'm not letting you give yourself that label. You've been into it since 2010. Nah, man, absolutely not.
Yeah.
I won't let you
Well,
do
just on the scale I was at, because once we moved to Florida, that's when I was able to get the more space. I was able to
Yeah.
get my first rack and like start stacking up animals, because it was, like I said, it was never more than 5 animals before I had
Yeah.
moved down there, and now there's like 70 sitting next to me. So
Yeah.
it's really spiraled over the last 5 years or so. But yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, what a weird time it was, man. And
granted, I was in those groups of people like spending a bunch of money on ball pythons. Like I have ball pythons like I spent a lot of money on, and like I look back on it, I'm just like, man, like it's crazy how much I spent, and watching those prices come down. And now as I'm getting out, seeing the prices of things, and like, you know what? But it's fine. It is what it is. It happened.
yeah, I mean, it's the nature of a lot of these markets where, I mean, reptiles or not, where the value is 100% just perceived. Like, what the hell is a snake worth?
Yeah.
Whatever you want it to be. Like, there's truly no intrinsic value to, these animals. Not to be, cold about it, but frankly, it is the case. You got go for it.
I was going to say, and what I will say is I'm grateful that I was able to get this built when and where I did, because if I was in my shoes now trying to start this from scratch, I wouldn't be able to afford it. It wouldn't be possible.
Yeah.
So like when I was living at home and just stocking a ton of money away, and I was able to buy the things I wanted, and now I'm able to have this, what I consider to be a pretty cool collection.
No doubt.
So, it's really cool. And there's not a lot of people. I was just talking because I had a guest that's also our age on my show this past week. I was saying like I find it so weird that I don't know if it's weird or not, but like there's not more people that are our age doing this on a serious basis. And it makes me wonder. I'm like, because a lot of the old school guys started this when they were really young, and when they were around our age, they were like really getting in the thick of things. Now I see a lot of people like in their 30s and their 40s like pick this up, and I'm just like, huh.
Yeah, no, that's something I've noticed as well, and that's why I've started doing these like what I call like the next gen podcast, where like frankly everybody, yourself included, who I've done these with, I'd have on the show anyway, but I really want to emphasize like these are the young people doing it at the highest level, because I look around and I'm like, man, there aren't that many of us.
Yeah.
And it's kind of crazy to think about. I'm like, I had this like kind of like crisis moment. I'm like, man, all of my like good friends in this industry are 15 to 40 years older than me. Like I'm going to be alone at some point doing this shit. Like, man, we got to cultivate a good young base of people doing this. Yeah, what do you have any insight as to why you think that might be? Because like you said, all these, I mean, we interview people who are older than us all the time, and their stories always go back to when they were kids like ours. So what do you think?
So here's the thing that I think. The people in question that are our age don't find this early enough, and maybe they want to get into it now, and the cost of living, they're not living at home anymore. Like I was just saying a few minutes ago, like it would be hard for me to start this from scratch in my current position. I live in Long Island, New York. It's expensive to live here. Like, and at this point, the stuff I buy is being funded by the stuff I sell for the most part.
Right.
Like it's kind of self-funding itself. So that's where I'm at. But to get started and just dump a ton of your own money out of your pocket, like, no. And
no, it's super difficult. And like people ask me all the time, I mean, I don't want to say all the time, but with somewhat regularity, like how, you're so young, how the hell are you doing this? I'm like, man, I just started really early. Like that's the only thing. Like I started really early and I just dedicated myself fully. Like that's really it. And if I hadn't started so early and I hadn't been living like on air mattresses in my like late teens, early 20s, just spending like every dollar on this, I just wouldn't be here. There wasn't the money there. Like it just plain and simple, So,
and even though you gave me my props, but like you were hardcore about getting into this. So like I give you all the props in the world because you like, even in your teens, you started the whole breeding and like larger collection thing. And because you had the ability to, that's where you got to where you are today. But if you didn't have that foundation, right, I'm sure all the stuff you currently have, like you just wouldn't have nearly the amount of it.
Yeah, sure. No question. Just my reptile life has been just like serendipitous moment after serendipitous moment and a lot of great mentors along the way. So no, I mean, I'm extremely fortunate, but like the one thing that I don't see a lot of people doing, which I know plenty of the people who are like in the generation above us did, was they're like, all right, I'm 17, I'm 18, I have no money. I want to do this. Let me find somebody who has a business and sleep on their floor and work 20 hours a day, exaggerating a little bit, but like, how do I get my foot in the door? And maybe this is just like a generational thing where there's like a entitlement / lack of work ethic with people our age. But like,
I agree.
Like, that was not an uncommon occurrence in our industry in like the early 2000s, in the 90s, even 10, 15 years ago. And now like, well, I'm not going to make $25 an hour, so I'm going to go work at McDonald's where I will. It's like, is your goal to work at McDonald's? Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know. I just don't understand, because that was, I had that mindset of like, I'm not going to work for money. Like it'll come when it's time. And until then, just if I'm going to continue doing this, the work will show eventually. But is this something that people our age aren't really interested in? Like what's the disconnect? Why? What do you think? Because I'm confused by it, frankly.
I am too, to be honest, because like I don't know, but like in reality, I could only speak from my own experience, and my own experience was getting that first snake, working at that pet store, and that's how I found all of this. But if that didn't happen to me, who knows where I'd be at, I have no idea. If that day I didn't buy that snake with my dad, like who knows what the hell would be going on.
Man, I have so many of those days. I couldn't even tell them all.
It changed the trajectory of everything. I mean, that's why I'm into this now. So, who knows? It crazy occurrence. And I think that's what happens a lot of time, but I think that's why it's good that, yourself, me, we have platforms to show off this stuff, and, doing like actual reptile shows in person, showing people that like, hey, like we're a bit younger. We definitely can. Well, you're tall. I don't know. I look young. I know I look young.
I mean, I don't know that beard. I don't think you could look young at all with that. Right? I'm doing my very best. I got follicle wise.
But I don't know. It's a tough question, man. But I do wonder the same thing. It's really crazy. But I hope we see more people that are around our age or younger get into this. I'd love to see more teenagers start then, so that they can get to like where me and you are at now by our age.
I mean, when you were in high school, did you have any friends who were also into reptiles, even on a more casual level than you?
None.
Yeah.
I have no one that's into reptiles, like in my friend circles, friend groups, whatever.
Another parallel. Yeah, I had like one friend who was kind of into it, and then he got some leopard geckos, and I ended up with the leopard geckos at some point. It was crazy though. My senior year of high school, I was walking between classes. I was in a fairly big school in Chicago, and I walked. There was a girl I didn't know. She walked past me with an NARBC shirt on. I was like,
"Oh,
who's that? What the heck? You came to school with the shirt on?" Like, I would never do that, but like, I don't want to get grilled by what the hell is this, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so that was like a tough thing. I developed a couple of good friends through my work, which was obviously reptile related. You know, Alex Myers is still one of my closest friends to this day, and like, you know, but to have people who you came up in the industry with, like, man, those bonds last forever. Like that. No, that to me is like, that's about as cool as it gets. Because, you know, I mean, we all know doing the stuff with the animals is amazing, but having the friendships and the community on top of it just like brings it all together.
Well, I could say right now, Kevin in the chat there, from Offspring Reptiles, he's closer to our age. He's a few years older than us, but he's someone else that's really passionate about Texas rats and really gave me a warm welcome on the internet when I was like posting stuff in Facebook groups when I was breeding for the first time. Like, Kevin would always interact with me. We started messaging, and he is what I would consider my first reptile friend. And we finally got a chance to meet at the first Colubrid Fest in 2024. So finally came full circle. But yeah, I mean, you know, that's what it's about. And I've made what I'd consider good friends in this industry over those last, few years or so.
Yeah, no doubt. It sucks that we don't all get to see each other more frequently.
Yeah.
That's the worst part about it. You know, I mean, like I'm going to be at Pomona this weekend, and like, there are people there who, like, if they were closer, would be good friends. I see once or maybe twice a year. That's kind of sad if you like really step back and think about it. Like, man, that's all. And like, we're not even just chilling. We're like at a show, you know, we're working and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's, I mean, I'm not complaining by any means, you know, those are awesome times, but it would be nice if we kind of, everyone congregated a little bit more frequently.
Yeah. I mean, events like, Colubrid Fest, I mean, that's once a year, but that's a really good one to get like a good group of people together. You know, that was really cool to see over the last couple of years. A lot of people who have been internet friends for years that were finally able to meet in person. Not all the shows do that. Some of these new events that are coming about that are more like community focused, I think is really helpful to the hobby.
Yeah, I regret that I missed both years. I can't remember exactly. Like, I think I'd already moved out of Indianapolis by the time Colubrid Fest happened. I'm like, I could have walked there.
Yeah.
I could probably see the convention center from my dad's apartment where I was living at the time. I'm like,
it was, the first one was right across from the Colts Stadium.
Yeah, Lucas Oil. Yeah, that's like, that would have been literally a 15-minute walk for me. That was a shame. And then I wanted to go last year. Just the timing really sucks how it's the weekend after the Dallas NARBC. It's like the only thing that, like, dang, I wish there was like one more week in between.
They pushed it back to it's the last weekend in September now.
Okay. So
in Evansville.
I mean, yeah. But I'm going to do everything in my power to make it to Colubrid Fest this year. I mean, for a ton of reasons. One, I think the concept is really amazing as far as the Colubrid only show, but then also the structure of the 3 days.
Yeah.
And I mean, you've been there. How do you think that the concept of, hey, the show is one day, you got to buy right now, do you think that works?
So I'll be completely honest. Because I vended both times. I think it definitely works for certain people. I haven't had a whole lot at my tables both years, so it was kind of like, I'd say like mixed results, but people were buying. That's for damn sure. They actually implemented this year that there's going to be a VIP sales portion on the Friday night, so that the people that are there for the whole weekend actually get first dibs to buy on the Friday, and then it's the show all day Sunday.
Cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, man. I definitely want to check it out. Just a lot of really awesome people have been at both of the events, and it just seems like a really fun time.
The species diversity you cannot get at any other show. I'll tell you that.
Even Daytona?
Well, Daytona has all the things, but like colubrid wise, like you do not see that many species at one show with that many good breeders. So.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. No, I'm excited. I really want to go check it out. When I heard that they were moving away from Fort Wayne, I was like, oh, go back to Indianapolis. And I was like, Evansville. I was like, all right. Yeah. Would have been cool. Yeah. But weren't there kind of like issues with the venue the first go around?
Yeah, it was really tough. It between cost, just convenience, the parking, it was kind of a shit show.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, I can only imagine what goes into promoting an event like that. So
yeah,
my hats off to those guys. They definitely have quite the undertaking there.
Definitely.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to pivot a little bit back to kind of your come up in the hobby. Yeah. Being that you were kind of trying to get started as more of a hobby breeder, get more involved in the industry around the time when social media was becoming much more prevalent. Obviously, today it's like, if you're not on social media, what the hell? You better be an old timer with a reputation of 50 years preceding you. Otherwise, you're screwed. At what point did it seem like having a social media presence and a strategy was going to be like a necessity for what you wanted to do?
I don't know what my count was in terms of like snakes, but I was at the point where I was like, yes, I want to do this as a business. I want to like promote this as something. And after a lot of deliberation, that's where Meteoric Serpents came about. I got the logo. I made the Instagram account. I did the whole thing that, the people do when they come into the hobby. But obviously I'm on the younger end, and I don't want to even say I'm that good at social media, but like I know how to take a good clear picture and videos and stuff. So
anyone who's like at 100 episodes on a podcast, they're doing it right.
Yeah. I jumped right in to the social media portion, and that's when I started going on YouTube and stuff, and that's where I found Trap Talk and some other stuff. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, at this point, do you think that anybody could even get a foot in the door without being on Instagram and Facebook and yada yada yada?
Not really. At minimum, Instagram and Facebook. I do see, especially with some of the people I've had on the show, like there are some people who can get away without like Morph Market accounts, and they will sell out every year, no problem.
Yeah.
Someone like a shout out, John Lasseter is an OG, breeding like the Montane King snakes. Like he does not have to put a single ad on Morph Market. And I've asked him before, and he's like, no, they sell. I was like, okay, makes sense. But for someone starting from scratch in this day and age, like you have to put in the work to make yourself a name, show that you have integrity, and like you have to kind of prove what you're doing. Otherwise, like I don't respect people who have nothing valid to like show. When I see Morph Market ads and I can't find you on Instagram, someone's inquiring on my account, they have a Morph Market store, but I can't find you on Instagram. Like, no.
Yeah, it's weird. Why would you be on the site that inevitably you're probably paying for, unless you have like 2 animals for sale and not be on the free platform where everyone is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel the same way when I see someone on there and I'm like, no social media? Like, what? Are you real? Like, is this a scam?
Yeah.
Like, I go to the review, like, I guess you've gotten some 5-star reviews. I'm like, all right, I hope you're a real person. I don't know. Like, that's definitely one that is confusing to me too.
Yeah, like I had someone sent me a message on Morph Market the other day. They wanted to trade the Hypo Puzzle ball python I had posted. And he's like, it was like a Hypo Clown Pied combo. And I'm like, that's a half decent, valuable animal. It's a triple recessive compared to double recessive.
I mean, triple recessives still have to be pretty valuable, right?
Yeah, I mean, not to get into the whole ball python conversation, but
I'm so far removed. I have no idea.
Clown pieds are kind of meh in my opinion, but like, yeah, I was just like, no, and this guy had no social media. It's like you're producing triple recessives, like, and you have nothing to show me besides pictures of this animal. How do I even know if that's yours or not? I have no idea.
Yeah, no, I'd feel the same way, especially like, and not to shit on the ball python people, but like, I feel like in that community, to generalize, vanity is a bit more important than in some other sectors of the hobby. So if you're producing a truly unique ball python in 2026, I feel like you'd be talking about it everywhere, right? Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's interesting. Probably wasn't real.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I get it. So on that topic, the transition out of ball pythons, being a colubrid guy, was there a moment, kind of like an aha moment? Was it kind of a gradual over time? Were you being nudged by friends? Like, because I've had the same type of thought process of like, man, I'm doing this. I've been doing this project for a while, but like, is it really what I love doing? Would my time be better spent doing this? Would I be happier doing this? Like, what was the genesis of this transition coming about?
Yeah, so there's actually a few things to it, but this move back to New York made the decision come probably quicker than it would have otherwise. So for a few reasons, I had a source I was getting live rats from because I was feeding the ball pythons live.
Okay.
And that guy started being inconsistent and he actually got out of the hobby.
Okay.
Then, so now I couldn't find a live rodent source. I order frozen because I'm like, I have to try something. Like, and I don't want to pay pet store prices. Half the collection eats, half of it doesn't. Now it's winter time. I'm blasting the heat in here. I was blasting the AC all summer. Luckily the room's on a thermostat, so I am able to control this room alone and I can keep it warmer than the rest of the apartment. Yeah.
That's super nice. Wow.
It's nice. A nice little, that wall dial right there. Hey, I lucked out. Each room in the apartment has its own thing. Yeah. Wow. Now I'm fighting humidity, like really bad. So a lot of things just came, and now like I still have some animals that will take frozen, and some of them I have to get live, and I have to go to the stupid pet store and pay ridiculous prices for like small rats, and it's just like, all right, well that sucks. And then along with that, like I'm having so much fun with the podcast. I'm having so much fun with the colubrids I'm raising up, and I guess I was always like, it's been slowly leading to this, but I was just like, you know what? Do I want to be in this rat race forever? Like, I don't want for me to enjoy producing cool hypopuzzle ball pythons. Like, I don't want to spend thousands of dollars a year just to upgrade, just to play keep up. Like, that's not what I'm here for. Because I enjoy the animals, and like, yes, as much as I would like to make money on the animals, like I don't want to have to spend all this money on animals just to play this keep up. So I was like, I finally decided, and it took me a while to like say it out loud. Like I was really like there without saying it. I was like, you know what? I think it's done. I think I have to hang up the ball pythons and really just go full force on the colubrids, because there's so much I want to do. There's different species I want to keep, and I think I'll just be happier going in that direction. And I think I am happy with my decision. Like I made myself a hypo puzzle last year, which at the time was pretty cool. There weren't a ton out there, and I made one for myself from a double head to double head. But like, you know what? That's fine. If that's where I bow out, that's where I bow out.
Yeah. My last ball python clutch had a surprise double recessive in it, and I was like, "Yeah, cool. Why not?
Nice.
Let's work in on that." I know. Yeah. No, I get it, man. I started in ball pythons. Some of my first mentors in reptiles were ball python breeders in Chicago, and they still hold a soft spot for me. But just I don't know, like, yeah,
I can definitely appreciate them. There's no doubt about that, and like there's super cool animals, but and like the enjoyment out of the colubrids, the behaviors, the different species, like that's what it's all about, man.
Yeah, no question. So in your kind of forming what you want to do, how you're going to move forward, obviously, I doubt that it was ever a question in your mind that the Texas rats were going to be the center of everything. So what is your mindset? Is it kind of have that as your main project and kind of have side projects that fit similar parameters? Do you have other species or genuses that you're like, these are going to be kind of like my secondary? What's your mindset right now?
Just the way I built the collection over the years, the Texas rats have become a huge portion. In my opinion, they are one of the most it's hard to say that because there are a few other underrated ones, but like Texas rats are underrated, underworked for how much potential there is within the species. Like between even just normal individuals, there's so much variability in the phenotypes, the amount of colors you could get, patterns, things like that. And then once you start stacking the morphs on them, there's even more to do because of that variability. It creates different expressions within the things. I've noticed, multi-het animals bring out some really unique colors that, you just don't get on your standard Texas rats. Even some locality Texas rats are just amazing looking, and you would think it's something weird. So there's just so much to do between line breeding, morph breeding. I'm very, very excited to be working with that. I have quite a few animals. There's more being added to that. Nice. But then when it comes to other species, I've slowly built that stuff up over time. The bamboo rat snakes, particularly the coxeye, that was the first Asian rat snake I got into. Okay. Super, super passionate about those. I got a proven breeder group from Matt Most a couple years ago, nice. And I was able to produce my first ones last year, which was really cool. It was a good notch in my belt to have a new species produce, something I hadn't done before. So they're working, and those are animals that could like really multi-clutch. I didn't get to see a ton of that last year. I hatched 7 babies total. I'm really hoping I can get them working this year. They're not required to brumate. I do have them with the rest of my adults, like down right now, cooling down, because I really wanted those females to recycle because of between when I had them sent to me and then the move. I just don't think they've been super on track. So I wanted to get that cycle restarted and really get them pumped up this spring. And rhino rats are another species I'm giving a shot at this year. I have a 1.1. The male's a bit on the younger side, but he's definitely old enough to breed. And we're going to give that a run. I think I'm doing their brumation properly, and we'll see what happens this spring/summer.
Nice. Yeah, actually, just thinking about it, my first Asian rats were a pair of cockeye from Atmos too. So
Yeah,
yeah, they're badass snakes. They're pretty much considered kind of like a breed them young, and they kind of flame out young from breeding too, right? They kind of like produce a ton and then they kind of slow down, or are they a little bit more kind of prolonged of a reproductive life span?
you know what? I'm not 1,000% sure on that, to be completely honest.
Okay.
They definitely can produce a lot if you don't stop them.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how quick they burn out. I mean, guys like Matt and Clint have been doing the porfs for years, and I'm sure they're not running through females like that quickly. So I think they go a little bit longer than stuff like a tricolor hog or something.
Yeah, that's exactly what I had in mind. Okay, that makes sense. I have to imagine if you brumate them as well, that you extend their lifespan and the reproductive cycle significantly too.
I'd assume so. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they're such cool snakes. I mean, and that's a snake that is a great like an apartment pet snake, something that likes cooler temperatures, doesn't get very big, is still super beautiful, and care wise, just, I mean, it couldn't be a whole lot. I mean, you need some humidity. It's really
they're so easy.
Yeah,
they're so easy. Besides the fact that they can kind of be assholes.
Some can.
Yeah, they're really cool. I also have a couple of the Volanti, which are the Chinese bamboo rats. Those are really interesting and not worked with as commonly as the other subspecies. So I'm excited to hopefully breed those next year, not this year.
Okay. I mean, aside from like Matt and Clint, is there anybody else who's really like put a lot of emphasis on that whole complex? Not necessarily, because I know people breed the cockeye, but like I feel like what's Laticinctus, right?
Laticinctus and Pulcher are the other two.
I feel like I used to see those, particularly the Laticincta, a lot more than I do now. Where, I mean, cockeye, you know, if you look at the complex and you're a novice to them, the eye is going to be drawn to the cockeye, right? I mean, no matter what. But then you start getting more into it, and you learn about the different subspecies. Then you see all the intricate details and the differences, yada yada. Why I don't understand why some of those other subspecies haven't caught on a little bit more.
Clint's been pretty good with Laticinctus for sure. I feel like besides cockeye, he probably produces Laticinctus like the second most, if not the most, out of the subspecies.
Okay.
Pulcher, I think, are just a little unpopular. I don't like them as much. I may like take the completionist route at some point and just get myself a pair of like Lats and Pulcher just to say I bred all of them.
Yeah.
But the Pulcher are not my favorite just because of the look. I don't know. I hate to say this. I just think they're just not as interesting looking to me. The Laticinctus are really pretty. They color up a nice bit as they age. They're one of the nicer aging subspecies. There are a couple other people like Kevin Pollock has been breeding all four subspecies for some time. He keeps some Asian rats. He's a little bit more of a low-key guy. I know like Rob Stone did a lot of work with the porfs in the early days because of his time at
Bushmaster.
The name. Well, yeah. Besides Bushmaster, Pro Exotics. Sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. No, I'm glad people are putting emphasis on them. They're badass snakes that really should be out there in the hobby. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah,
it's awesome. So at this point, are there other projects that you have kind of like eyeballed as the next ones you want to add?
So as I make this collection transition, one of my goals is to really of course I want to be passionate about the species I'm working with, but I'd like to be a part of like the crew of people who put in good work with a species that's a little more rare or not as common in captivity, who's putting in the work to keep them preserved. So I will say I have something on the way. I don't want to reveal it yet because I'll show it when it gets here. But there's a species that there are, let's see, 6 listings total of this species on Morph Market by 2 breeders. I don't know why there's not more than that. They are an Asian rat snake, but that's something I was like, maybe I can make my mark on this and like and do something with it. So that's like a goal of mine, is just help with the preservation of species. And I've had this conversation with Matt before, and he even says it about the Texas rats, like because I don't know if you saw, Matt's been cutting down on a lot of stuff with his work and stuff, and I was like, all right, well, I can't let Texas rats fall into the wrong hands, so I may have scooped an extra couple from him, but like, you know, he's always said it to me, like the Texas, that's why he's so adamant about me and Kevin keeping, like, doing what we're doing, because we're putting in the work with the morphs and like trying to keep this stuff good, because there's not a lot of people doing that. And if not enough people are doing it, then we lose that species altogether, or we lose some morphs. Oh my God, the pictures I've seen of old Texas rat snake morphs that don't exist anymore is crazy. And I don't want that to happen to more species. It just would be really unfortunate. And unfortunately, we see it in the colubrid hobby a good bit, when a species just gets kind of forgotten about, or falls into the, I'm going to say wrong hands, but just like people who don't put in the work to preserve.
Hands. Yeah, 100%. And I think with colubrids, especially considering there are quite literally thousands of species, it's a whole hell of a lot harder for one of them or easier for one of them to disappear than a python or a boa, when it's like, all right, we can pretty easily catalog all of this. And with that said, they have been, you know, we've lost boas and pythons to the hobby. Yeah, man, I just love seeing that. I love seeing people taking an underappreciated or overlooked species, or one that's commonly wild caught, whether it be, you know, a native or an exotic. It was a big part of my, you know, choice to go heavy on the scrub pythons. Just for that exact reason. No one else was really, you know, there were people who were kind of trying to put effort in, but in a way that I wasn't too thrilled with. So, and you know, not even only for the sake of, you know, preserving the animals, but I feel like this is one of the ways to like really set yourself apart from a business standpoint from the crowd, is by having something that's uniquely yours.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a more like selfish reason about it, but I completely agree. I do want to set myself apart. I do want to prove myself. You know, I do still feel that people see me in the hobby as this young kid who doesn't have a lot of experience under his belt. And it's not an unfair thing to say, but I want to put in the work to prove myself and prove that I could keep and breed and take care of these animals. So yeah.
No, it's admirable, man. I applaud you for that. And a lot of people who are newer in the hobby, you know, and you can't really blame them, but they'll see the trends and they'll be like, oh, I guess that's what I should like, because these people.
I did a whole talk about this at the last Colubrid Fest. Was newer people like building projects in the hobby. Yeah, and I've made my own mistakes that I mentioned in that presentation. And if we want to sit back and look at it, ball pythons would be considered one of them. But you know what? You learn from your mistakes. Hopefully, you just make less of them.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And, you know, that's one of the great things about podcasting, is you get to hear mistakes and, you know, in clear audio format from people.
Yeah.
That was one of the things that I feel like almost more than anything, I would say one is just like, as far as why I got to where I did, was just relentlessly working at it and like not having a plan B. But then also for the first, I talk all the time, as anyone who does a podcast does now, but man, for the first 10 years that I was involved in the hobby, my mouth was shut, my ears were open, and I was very specifically looking for the mistakes that people who I respect made when they were younger, and be like, all right, I'm sure as hell not going to do that. And there are a few very specific ones that I can even remember right now, of like, all right, I'll never be beholden to somebody with what I can do with my animals in my space for my animals, or something like that. Or like, I'm never going to give this up because there's some other, I want to go party and go to, be doing the college thing or whatever it may be. Like, as much as that might seem appealing, to think like, all right, cool, you had your 4 years, you're in the real world now. Oh, you got rid of all your animals, you're back at square one. I wish you probably wish you had some of those back and had that time back. I'm like, well, all right, we're not doing that. So stuff like that, just, I guess you could be glad that you didn't go down that path. If you had that information ahead of time, I guess you can't blame anyone who didn't really see the picture clearly.
Yeah. But exactly what you're describing happened to a lot of people. And maybe that's a symptom of why we don't see, going back to our earlier conversation, maybe that's a symptom of why we don't see more young people. I don't know.
Yeah.
Go away to college.
Yeah. And,
do it.
Not often do people have supportive parents when they're young and want to, get a collection of reptiles. So
yeah,
that's a major component as well that can't be overlooked. I was just very fortunate to where, with some years of convincing, it wasn't like, all right, go crazy. But, I didn't have many reins on me eventually. So once I kind of proved that, like, all right, he's going to do it. But yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. But man, like I was saying, I really encourage people to like find someone to be a mentee under, learn the industry, go to shows, make connections. Like, when I was, 16, 17, 18 and going to shows with Forrest, like I met so many people, and it didn't really matter like what animals I had or whatever. Like, making a lot of those connections has a lot to do with where I ended up getting to. Just like meeting the right people, being in the right place at the right time. Like, you're tired, stay up that extra hour at the bar at Tinley because you don't know what's going to happen during that time.
Right.
Just like, and I'm getting better, but at that point, man, social anxiety to the highest degree possible. And like, these are people I've looked up to since my childhood, and I'm just like, terrified.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was difficult, but yeah, just like putting yourself in that position, just, being there for that opportunity if it presents itself is just, it's what you got to do, unfortunately, for better or worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're right about at that midway point. I have plenty more topics I want to talk to you about, but I want to cut to the commercial break real quick. So sit tight, everybody. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Sorry for the interruption, folks, but a quick word from our sponsors.
Hi, I'm Devin.
I'm Teresa, and we are Pragmores. We are based in Czech Republic, a small country in the middle of Europe.
We really love animals that revolve around multi-recessive projects, and one of our very favorites is Hypo. We're really looking forward to clutches that are coming this season, and some of those are Hypo Clown, DG Clown, Hypo DG Clown, and one of our all-time favorites, Hypo Puzzle.
Hope you enjoyed the next episode on Trap Talk, the greatest reptile network in the world.
If you guys want to see next level cutting edge ball python projects, please make sure you head over to their Instagram to follow all their amazing work, and head over to their website to see what they could possibly have available by heading over to progmorphs.com. Thank you again, Devin and Teresa, for bringing some of the biggest heat worldwide in the ball python game. If you want to be organized, if you want to be cutting edge in the ball python game, then you don't want to miss this. Shout out to today's sponsor, and that's Clutch, #1 ball python organization app in the game. No better place to start off than by using this app. Clutch is an organization app that helps you organize all your ball python projects. It also helps your peers and your fellow community members look at what you possibly have coming for the upcoming ball python season, what you have currently available on Morph Market. It's so awesome to be ahead of the game by using organization app like Clutch. Thank you so much, the entire Clutch team, amazing team over at Clutch. If I were you, I would head over to Clutch's Instagram account, and I would also head over to their website, try it out, see how it works for you. But especially if you're just now coming into this, before you build your reptile collection, I would do it organized, and I would do it with Clutch. Thank you, Clutch, for being so amazing. Excited to hear what Clutch has to bring in the near future. Cheers. Sorry for the interruption, folks, but a quick word from our sponsors. Green tree pythons, emerald tree boas, and plenty other arboreal snakes have been quite the popularity here at the Trap Talk Reptile Network, which brings me to today's sponsor, the Reptile Perch. Head over to the reptileperch.com and Reptile Perch on Instagram. See what type of design PVC perch is best for your arboreal reptile. But first and foremost, I would also check out David Brom's Green Tree Python availability on the website. And you can also check out his Instagram just to stay current on any projects or any productions that he posts. Thank you so much, David Broms, for your ongoing support. Looking forward to seeing what you have to show in the 2025 season. When you think about building a good community and being a leader of that community, nobody comes to mind better than Mark Hager over at Texas Chondros. That's right. Make sure you head over to TX Chondros on Instagram and also head over to Mark's website. See what he has available Green Tree Python wise, and be ready for quite the 2025 Green Tree Python breeding season out of Mark Hager. He's a veteran in the Green Tree Python game, one of the best and nicest breeders in the Green Tree Python game. He's been putting on the whole state of Texas for as long as I've known him. So if you want to see all the amazing other chondro keepers out of the state of Texas, another good reason to go follow Mark Hager over at TX Chondros on Instagram. And again, head over to his website, texaschondros.com. You can find all the links in the description below. Thank you so much, Mark Hager, for supporting the trap. Cheers.
Alrighty, we are back. So I kind of now want to transition a little bit into talking about the podcast a little bit.
Yeah.
So I had a similar conversation with Adam a couple weeks ago, and frankly, his answer to my question was not at all what I expected about, kind of his evolution in the podcast. He's like, I didn't even want to do it. He's like, I thought I was going to do a few and then dip. I'm like, what? But so, how did the idea for you come about? What was your inspiration for starting the podcast?
Yeah. So obviously I had been listening to Trap Talk for some time. I was doing another panel type show every week with some other people in the hobby. And at the time I was like, there's no, so CCR had been a thing. I'd really liked CCR. I'd been listening since the start, since episode 1. But I was like, there's no live streamed Colubrid episodes, and no one's filling this gap right now. And I had been getting this under my belt of being on here and talking to people on YouTube. And I was like, what if I did this? What if I maybe I could do this? And I pitched the idea to some people, what do you think? And, other people had said, I think it's a good idea. Go for it. And so I started it off, was super nervous at first. I did a lot of things honestly, you and Adam talked about this too. I used to always have outlines with certain questions I used to want to hit, but I tried to keep it conversational. Nowadays, I don't outline a single episode. I do things completely off the dome. I really let the conversation take it where it's going. I try to be insightful, listening, asking questions where they feel appropriate. Try to ask good questions that go deeper beyond the conversation. And I mean, I think I've gotten good at it. Obviously I'm right around the same episode mark as you. So it's been going on for a little more than 2 years. So I'm really proud of where it's at, where it's grown. I get a lot of compliments on it. So, and obviously, like, it competes with Zach and Clint, but like, we don't look at it as a competition. They're two different shows. We're different personalities. It's a totally different thing. So,
Yeah.
I have this place in the podcasting space, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's a good point you made there. Because a lot of us, we'll interview the same people and we'll do each other's shows like right now and stuff like that. But I mean, man, from one interviewer to another, you'll get an entirely different 2 hours out of the same person. And what one person's line of questioning may bring up an entirely different facet of the conversation. And so, I think that it could possibly be looked at as a detriment that there are a number of different podcasts covering the same topics. Or you could look at it the opposite way of, now we just get this much more depth within the topic that is being broached, because there are multiple different angles of approach to that person and their work.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've also kind of kept, like, because I do my episodes weekly. Typically, I skip here and there. I'm really trying to like hone in on the weekly thing this year, especially. But like, I've been able to get more guests that you wouldn't expect to come on the podcast. Like, I do the way MJ and Emilio do New Breeder on the Block. I do my Newly Corrupted, which are for more like newer colubrid keepers and breeders, because it's not about the guests sometimes. Like, I really want to hear that perspective of someone who's new into the hobby, how they got into it, how they feel about things, what they're excited about. It's different than someone who's been established for a while. I want to hear where that excitement comes from. So, and just other guests that, may not have a huge social media following, like you wouldn't expect to hear them on the podcast. And sometimes the episode does well, sometimes it doesn't, but I don't really care about that. I think if I see people doing good stuff with their animals, I think they deserve a chance to come on the show. And
Sure.
I think people are those people who, I invite, I think they're pretty appreciative of it. Plus, it gives a way to like shout out other people doing good stuff in the colubrid world.
Yeah, no doubt. And then, kind of you have like a community almost like rally around the show a little bit. I mean, I think the perfect example of that was with NPR. Like, they started a podcast about carpet pythons, which expanded to much more than just carpet pythons. But then, like, they got people flying from around the world to a party at, Eric's house in Pennsylvania just to meet everybody who's like part of I mean, that's so cool. Like, how many other facets of life end up in a scenario like that? It's just so crazy.
Definitely.
So yeah, man, just something that like I really love that aspect of it as well. The one of the things that I got to give you a lot of credit for, you just have a really cool name for your podcast. Colubrid Corruption, like it's catchy. Obviously, like anything with like that alliteration is gonna like really catch them with attention. Like there's intrigue too. Like, wait, what does that mean? Like, why Colubrid Corruption, and how did you come up with that name?
Yeah, so I don't remember what well, yeah, the whole reasoning behind that name was because I was so deep on the ball python side of things, and I realized that there were a ton of these ball python keepers that just had like no idea that some of these species existed. And I'm just like, and I grew up the way I did, where I was like gung-ho colubrids, and I didn't like ball pythons until I really got into them. And I just couldn't believe that so many people didn't know. And what I wanted to do was corrupt those ball python people to like have an interest or get into colubrids. And that was really the initial purpose of the show. I don't know if it's really doing its job at that, but at the very least, I still think it puts colubrid info in people's ears based on the circles I'm in and stuff. I think it's definitely gained some traction on that aspect.
Oh no, it is definitely accomplishing that goal. Yeah, I mean between you and Zach and Clint, you know, a lot of really high level information on colubrids is coming out these days in podcast form. So it's pretty fantastic. Because I mean, I'm trying to think back, like during the 2010s, were there any colubrid podcasts? Maybe there were a couple corn snake podcasts, but like,
Yeah, I have no idea.
focusing on like diversity of colubrids up until CCR, I feel like just wasn't really a topic that was broached. Like NPR would do colubrid episodes every now and then, but that's not the theme of their show. So, you know, like Rob would co-host an episode about rhino rats or whatever it may be.
Right.
Because I mean, the podcast medium is really, it's super important and it's super effective at generating intrigue and interest in, which is counterintuitive to what you would think, considering that so much of the culture and the world at large these days is kind of more going towards, you know, the algorithm, the quick little TikTok, you know, whatever it may be. So long form content seems like the antithesis of that. But man, for those of us who get drawn in by it, it's the absolute best. I don't know. It's so good at what it intends to do, in my opinion.
Yeah, and something MJ always said to me, because obviously I had taken a lot of inspiration from MJ and like just the style and structure of my show. I mean, you could kind of see the parallels if you watch one of them back to back. But
Sure.
Oh, sorry, I lost my train of thought. What he had always told me, like when I was getting started, was like, dude, like your podcast episodes are a catalog. It's a library of just information that, you know, and it's there forever. It's out on the internet and people can always access that. And I had this conversation with Zach, Dr. Loafman, and we had talked about, like, you know, a lot of colubrid keepers have been really into books, and that's thanks to CCR, because Zach's always talking about different books and stuff. And I've quite a few books, but like we don't get a ton of new, depending on the species, there have been some new stuff that came out, but like we don't get a lot of updated books like the Klaus books. The most updated version of that was the Dr. Messenger book, and that was solely Chinese rat snakes, whereas like Klaus covered all the Asian, Eurasian rat snakes. So, you know, the fact that we have that, like I have this podcast and I could bring on people to talk about these species, it gives that updated information, a little more real world stuff, like real time stuff about the species and what's going on with them and stuff like that. So
yeah, absolutely. It's kind of like the information just gets to be in a really fluid state, because publishing that podcast doesn't take years of writing and research, and then the week after it's up, if the information changes, it's like, oh, that was all ruined. It's like, oh no, let's do another podcast and talk about what's different.
Yeah.
Like it's such an easy, like the barrier to entry on that information is just it's so minimal. So I guess in your time so far, how do you think you've kind of evolved as an interviewer, as a podcast host? And, you know, what are, I guess, two-part question. What are some aspects of a reptile podcast that you think make like the best version of this thing we do?
Okay, hold on to that second question, because I'm going to answer the first question.
All
and we'll come back to that. But what I will say, and you may not think this, but like I was super shy, like really back in college, especially up until I believe it was my junior or senior year, where I took a public speaking class. And that's where I really learned like how to talk in front of people, like, and like give presentations and stuff. Mm-hmm. Then I had a class my senior year. I was a finance major, and we had to manage the school's portfolio. It was called Student Investment Fund, and then we had to present this to the board of directors at my college. And like it was like legit, like not fake money. Like we were making real investment decisions with money. And I presented all 3 times in that semester. We did 3 presentations. There were like 20 plus kids in the class, but I did all 3 presentations because I became the best presenter in the class and the one the most confident in the information. So once I was able to get past that hurdle, like I know I could, and I still get nervous, like in front of the crowd at Colubrid Fest. Like I was like, I don't like talking in front of a crowd like this. But once I broke past the first few episodes of the podcast and kind of found my rhythm, it's really taken off, especially I think more so in the last 12 months, especially. Like I think my skills of a speaker and an interviewer have just skyrocketed. And you know, like I was saying, I think I have good podcast episodes with good information. And you know, you may look at the runtime of an episode sometimes like an hour and a half, hour 45. I know 2 hours is like a staple for Reptile podcast, but like my intro is about 5 to 7 minutes long, and the rest of that is strictly speaking to the guests. So I still think that hour 20 to hour 40 mark is still like, that's a lot of information you could get out of that. So yeah, it's been really cool to see myself evolve, see the podcast evolve. I've had some really cool guests that you don't hear from every day. And I hope to have some more. But yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I guess then before we get into the second part of the question, is there anything that you're kind of consciously trying to evolve in as part of, you know, as like involved in your hosting of the podcast? Is there anything else you have on your mind? Like, this is the next thing I want to kind of try to master. I'm always trying to think about how to do this a little bit better and make it the episode just a little bit more engaging or whatever it may be.
Well, I think so I try to do my so one thing I'm not good at, the really old school keepers, like the people that would be considered legends. Like you had Craig Trumbauer on. I'll be honest, with my knowledge and history, I would not be confident to have Craig on, because I don't feel that I know enough about, like, I know how important his work was on the hobby, but I can't personally appreciate it because like I didn't live and see a lot of that. And I feel like I would do a disservice to him by trying to ask and have him on. I would be uncomfortable with him as a guest.
Yeah, I think for me with that, I was fortunate that I had met Craig a few times. But then also, man, I listened to like 5 podcasts. I was in the same boat because I feel the same exact way. Like, not only one, is there a lot to know, but 2, as the interviewer with somebody like Craig Trumbauer, or, you know, you could go down a list of legends who might agree to do a podcast, who, you know, might not love technology or whatever it may be, but see how important getting the information out is and appreciating that this is the medium of the day. It's a heavy responsibility to ask the right questions to be able to actually extract the information that people would want to hear. Because, man, I can only imagine, you know, somebody gets booked some legend on their podcast and just throws softballs the whole time. As a listener, man, I would be furious. Like,
yeah,
wait, you had 2 hours with this legend of herpetoculture and you didn't tap the well of information at all. Like, what were you doing?
I've worried that there are some people who may have felt that about episodes I had, and I can't confirm or deny that because no one's ever said it to me. I do have someone who would definitely be considered a hobby legend, but not for Colubrids, coming on the show next month, who I'm excited to have on. We met for about 10 minutes in person last year. Okay. I'm excited to have him, but probably going to be a little out of my depth, but I'm going to make sure I'm prepped well enough to give a good interview, you know?
Cool. Well, I'm going to ask you once we're done with this who that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. You know, I've been very fortunate through my podcasting time to be involved with some of those episodes. Like, man, the one that I'll probably never forget during the early Unfiltered days, like the one and only time Ed Marino ever decided to do a podcast.
Yeah,
man, and like went through and did like a tour of his basement with all the basins. I'm like, moments like this, like you're gonna remember that forever. Like that was just, man, stuff like that's so crazy. So, and like the episode I did with Craig, like I think objectively looking at all my episodes, and no slight to anybody, I think that was probably the best one. And I was just like, I had this like crazy like dopamine high after the show. I'm like, oh, that was amazing. Like that's all I hoped it would be. Like I'm glad I did all the prep for it. So, but yeah, there's something so gratifying about knowing like I was just part of getting this episode out that is going to help so many people and will be here as long as the internet is here. Like that could be referenced in 20 years with relevant information today. So I think that's really, I think that's one of the most special parts about what we do.
Yeah, I've had a few episodes like that where it's people like I haven't heard on podcasts a ton. Like I did an episode with Dan Malari, and I thought that episode went actually quite well. And I was listening back to it recently. Sometimes I do that just to kind of refresh on what they said. But you don't see Dan on a ton of podcasts. Obviously, he does YouTube. He's a very public guy, but getting him to talk about colubrids, he's usually talking about pythons. On stuff he may do. So that was cool to kind of hear from him. So
yeah, absolutely. So then I want to kind of circle back to the second part.
Sorry.
No, not at all, dude. Don't worry. When you were like, let's do this in two parts, I'm like, yeah, why would I ask that all at once? That's crazy. So I mean, as a host and as a consumer, what do you think make for the like top? What makes a reptile podcast great in your eyes?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's see. So, being perfectly honest, I don't like. There's a lot of reptile podcasts out there, right? Like we know that. I listen to Trap Talk. I listen to CCR. The most. I listen to Adam's podcast. I listen to NPR sometimes. What defines a good podcast? Just like making sure that like actual information's being brought to the table, trying to get that personalized info out of people. The reason I can't listen to, well, now that I'm getting out of them, but like I dropped a ton of the ball python podcasts I had listened to because it was the same regurgitated BS over and over. It's the same thing with every single guest. And it's like, I cannot listen to this. You are asking, it's the same exact questions. There's no conversation being had. It's next question. And as a listener, I can't do that. That's why I enjoy Trap Talk. I listen to the ball python episodes because MJ and Emilio are very dynamic. They personalize the questions to the person. They're insightful and listen to the conversations, as do all the other people I mentioned, but just honing in on the ball python. So, that's that's what I want to see, is just like good information being brought out, some thought put into the questioning process, if that makes sense. Which, again, as I said, like back when I first started, I probably wasn't like that. It was a little more cookie cutter every episode, but I think I quickly evolved, and especially, over the last year to year and a half, I've just gotten a lot better with doing that.
Sure. I mean, I think that's very natural. The first handful of times you do it, it's like diving in the deep end. Eventually you learn how to swim, and then you do it effortlessly. Like, as far as like we were mentioning earlier about making outlines for shows and whatnot. I mean, I try my best to not ever really do that. at this point, kind of like what you were saying, how you just kind of like, but at some point you naturally will have a structure that is just so automatic that, you're never going to find yourself like, oh, I'm floating. I have no idea what the heck I'm doing here. It's like, yeah, you've done this 100 times. Like you're gonna figure it out. I guess the other thing that I want to try to, and I don't, this is very open-ended, but I'm always thinking about, okay, what are all of us as reptile podcast hosts not doing that we could, or like, what are some approaches that could be taken that would make episodes unique? Because I guess I'm fortunate where I haven't kind of like pigeonholed myself into a particular lane. Like I talk about whatever I want to on here. Most people know me for scrub pythons, but I might go 4 months without doing an episode on scrub pythons. So I think like that gives me a lot of freedom to kind of talk about whatever. Like if you had an episode all of a sudden about like aquatic turtles, people would be like, on the Colubrids show?
Well, people are in for a treat with, I'm bringing MJ on this week, and we're probably not going to talk about Colubrids at all unless MJ wants to talk about his past. But yeah, that one's more for fun, talk about podcasting, the hobby in total. But to kind of answer your question, I had something that was going in my head. Yeah. And then I started rambling. Shit.
But just new approaches, things that we can do that make our shows unique to one another a little more, or just add a new, not even necessarily that, but like add a new dynamic or whatever that could be, uncharted territory with what we're doing.
Yeah, it's tough. So like for me, for example, like I say all the time, like self-proclaimed, I am a rat snake guy. I know in the colubrid category, I know more about rat snakes than any other group of snakes. So sometimes when it's a king snake episode or a pituophis episode, I feel a little bit out of my depth because I'm not as familiar with the species. And that's when I try to make sure that I'm asking better, insightful questions that's not only good for me and my lack of knowledge, but they're also good questions for the audience as well. And maybe, and I don't know if I've noticed this or not, but I don't know if on episodes that are more rat snake oriented, I subconsciously know too much and I don't ask good enough questions. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting thought. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that. Sometimes like as podcasters, like even episodes like these, like we've been talking about a lot more than just my collection, and I'm happy to dive into my collection as much as we want, but having these like more nuanced talks where it's not just the reptiles, I think makes for a more compelling conversation. Sometimes it's not off topic, but it's not necessarily what snakes do you keep, what are you doing with them, this and that. Because like, well, Lisa said in the chat, my podcast with Dr. Whitman, and I did think that one was really good. Me and Dr. Whitman spent 20 plus hours in a car together and got to talk a lot. And I happened to just kind of recycle those conversations back onto the podcast because I wanted everyone else to hear them as well. So, we did a lot of that. Like I recently did an episode with Dr. Loafman where he told me at Colubrid Fest, he was like, I want you to bring me on the podcast and ask me hard questions. I'm sick of answering questions about snake physiology. I was like, you want it? You got it. So that's what I did. Like a few weeks later, I brought him back on and I wrote out a ton of questions, and I was like, these are hard questions that go on the whole hobby versus academia side. Like, so having like interesting conversations like that, and not always the, what snakes you got, what you breeding. Like, it's not always the necessary conversation, especially when you've had a guest on like more than once. Like diving into a specific topic is fun and can make for interesting content.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with that. I feel like it's in episodes, kind of like this one right here, you have to bridge the gap between a kind of non-structured free flowing conversation and then like total chaos.
Yeah.
Like podcasts. I think Zach and Clint put out a clip recently from one of their episodes. I heard. I was like, I hope that's not me, about like these reptile podcasts that are just so much for the fans of the podcast that like they're full of just like inside jokes and banter about the show, where like if you're not a super fan, you have no idea what's going on, where there's like not a whole lot of structure to it. And I was just like, immediately like, do I do that? I don't know. But I feel like, that creates some like familiarity, but then could get to the point where it's like, okay, now this is a podcast about nothing. And why the hell am I even listening to it?
Well, I think a lot of the podcasts that are out there, not some of the good ones I mentioned, have devolved into a show about nothing. Seinfeld. I
mean, hey, they pulled it off, man. I gotta give them credit.
Well, they were funny and entertaining, but
true. That is true. Yeah, so I don't know. That's always something that I'm kind of like trying to figure out exactly how to bridge that most evenly between good information that's going to be super useful to people, and then also like not have it be a lecture, but then not have it be so casual where people are like, what the hell is going on here? Are they even taking this seriously? Yeah. So I don't know. Because I think about, like types of podcasts that I like to listen to that have nothing to do with reptiles. Like, okay, what can be applied? And it's so all over the place, because there is one, like, listening to like Andrew Huberman's podcast where it's just information overload for 2 hours. It's just,
yeah. Well, that's the thing with like
through line through it as well. Like it's a great show, but like not everything can be like that, because that is quite the skill. And then there's like everything in between. But I'm like, considering that this is at least, in a way, a scientific pursuit, and not just like, we're not just here to make jokes and banter the whole time. What level of seriousness is most necessary, but then also keeping a little bit of a levity to it, to where it's really engaging,
Yeah. Yeah. Our shows also, like, because they're about reptiles, they're already so nuanced as it is. It's like the conversation is keeping to reptiles, whereas like podcasts like you're talking about, they could go wherever the hell they want if they're just like a conversation with the respective guests. Like,
right.
No, these podcasts are focused on reptiles, and the fact that like we're able to put out 2 hours of straight reptile talk is honestly impressive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No doubt. Yeah, I think it's fantastic. It really, it's amazing. I can only imagine if I was like in the mindset that I was when I was like 15, 16, of like, let me just consume everything I can with the amount of information that's out these days. I'd be like, where do I even start? Like, which show should I even listen to? Like,
yeah,
because there were a handful of shows, but you could listen to all of them if you wanted to in like 2015. But now I'm not even aware of like more than 15% of the reptile podcasts. Probably.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Like, I don't scroll a lot on Instagram or whatever. So it's so hard to like actually really have the finger on the pulse of it.
Yeah, agreed. I only keep my eye on a select few anyway, so that's what I'm absorbing.
The one thing that I've been back and forth on, like whether or not it'd be a good idea, would be to have like, because Zach and Clint did the episode recently about some like controversial topics within the industry, with some different perspectives, and I thought it was a good episode for sure. I enjoyed it, and at the end I was like, I kind of wanted some fighting, like not like fighting, but like I kind of wanted some disagreement on a couple of things, like I remember, I don't want to like call it out.
Brooke was on that one, right?
Yeah, she was on
Yeah.
that episode. I don't want to call it out specifically, but I remember hearing like a panel podcast stream, and somebody made a claim about like something along the lines of like, as a breeder, you should know that all of the animals you are going to produce are going to go to home before you breed the animals. And I'm like, that is the worst take I have ever heard in my 16 years in this industry.
Yeah.
And immediately I'm like, I had the impulse, like I want to get on the podcast and talk about like why at the very core of this concept it is just as flawed as possible. But then I'm like, what would be even better would be to like talk to 2 or 3 people at a time who have wildly different views on a subject like this, and not for like Jerry Springer stuff, but like real tough conversations, or like,
yeah, I'm all for that. I enjoy, podcast, like reptile podcast episodes like that. Speaking of roundtables, a couple that I did this year were like species or genus specific roundtables. I'm trying to put together another one again. I think those are really cool, especially when you could get the right group for that roundtable.
Yeah, 100%. What was probably up until the Craig episode, my favorite one I had done was a roundtable I did about breeding rodents on a small scale for your collection. Yep. It was Marshall, Kyle Vargas, Mark Bailey, and Patrick. And at the end of that episode, I was like, I mean, this might, I don't want to sound like arrogant, but I'm like, man, is there better information about how to breed rodents on a small scale for your collection on the internet?
No, that was good. I listened to that one. Yeah.
Like, it was 3 hours of just the best possible information about that very specific topic. Because we're not talking about making a business out of it. We're talking about taking the biggest expense of being a snake breeder and turning it into zero or maybe a little profit. And I'm like, that could be the most helpful thing that I've been a part of, is putting that information out there for people. Because I know, I look around, like if I didn't have my rodent colony in the other room, I'd be screwed. Like there's no way I could do this. I would be spending like $8 to $10 grand a year feeding my collection. Like it's impossible. So like, but there's only so many topics like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of what I struggle with, is like, do you want to like really try to like milk some of these things as hard as possible, or let there be only a handful of times where it's like, this is really like a special, important topic, and not try to like force it? I don't know.
Yeah. So what I've done, not necessarily panels, but I think after I get, so if I have a person on my show, right, usually it's like their intro episode, going through everything, their collection and whatnot, talking about all of that. If I bring them on for a second time, we're obviously not doing that intro again. We're going to be going into a more like nuanced conversation, whatever that may be. Maybe it's a deep dive on something they bred, or maybe it's just a concept, something they've implemented. I don't know. But I think those episodes often can be more insightful than the typical, hi, whatever, I got into the hobby whenever. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally agree. Take something kind of nuanced or whatever and amplify it, and, get it out there to where people can really use that for their benefit. Because,
and granted, there's nothing wrong with the typical like intro episodes, because I do them all the time. I know you do them too. This was a form of that. So like, there's nothing wrong with those episodes. Just going back to the question of elevating the podcast, I think just trying to weave in those more nuanced conversations makes for good content, and I think it enhances our credibility as podcasters to be able to bring those topics to light.
Yeah, 100%. Because I figured, I kind of thought after a while, like, am I doing too many of these, to where like if I had, let's look at 4 episodes a month, sometimes it's 5, whatever it may be, but like you're splitting it into quarters. Like if I had one a month that was kind of like a biography, does it make it that much more special that I'm only doing 12 of them, maybe 15 of them a year, as opposed to 40? You know, like do the questions get so repetitive that people aren't even going to want to listen? But like, oh wow, here's this person who doesn't do many podcasts. Let's hear about their story. And considering that the last time you did that was a month prior, now that becomes a little bit more special, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's why I try to throw like the solo episodes in there as well. But then I got to the same point of like, do I want to do a solo episode for the sake of doing one, or do I want to actually have something really like I want to talk about?
Your solo episodes do a lot better than my solo episodes, so you keep at those, and I'll keep trying to get guests on.
I mean, like right now, I don't have one idea for a solo episode that I'm like, I could do that next week. I'm like, nah, I got nothing right now. I don't know what to tell you. I like doing them a lot, but I don't want to be there like, okay, so this week was cool. I like paired some stuff and I fed some stuff and I shipped some snakes. All right, see you next week. Like, that's fucking boring. So
yeah. Well, what I decided I wanted to do was do like, because solo episodes go quick, and I know I talk fast, especially when I'm talking to myself. Sometimes when I'm having a conversation and thinking a little bit more, I talk a bit slower. But like for my Patreon members, I want to do little short episodes, even if it's 20 minutes of me talking to the camera about a topic that I would communicate better over a video than trying to like type it out in a chat. Even I think that's worth it as content. It makes for good content. So I mean, granted, those aren't getting posted to the public, but they're still you know, good conversations that are at least going to a select group of people. For that.
Yeah, no doubt. And just kind of like what you said there is exactly kind of what I like kick around of. Like you said earlier, we have this standard format of a 2-hour reptile podcast. Why is the standard reptile podcast 2 hours? Like, you know, there are podcasters who are wildly successful and they'll do like half an hour 3 times a week. A half-hour podcast is easy.
It sure is, but getting the guests at that point is
like, if you can make half an hour impactful with frequency, that's a totally different skill than what this show is, of a drawn out conversation where we have time to go in depth and go here and go there. So I'm like, yeah, like it's a totally, I don't know, it's interesting. It's something that I think about a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, because I think Rob and Jeremy, especially when they're doing their podcasts with more regularity, their episodes were never particularly long. They were like an hour or so, but typically we're with a guest. So I just think, like, you know, even format wise, what could be different format wise, and not even necessarily all the time, throw in something new here and there that just adds a little bit of life to what we're doing, throws a wrench in the works, you know?
Yeah. I don't know. That's a tough one. I think that's a question for MJ. But, you know, obviously MJ is very good at what he does, and has kind of laid out the kind of groundwork for a lot of this space, especially the live podcasts. Yeah, in terms of like dynamic stuff, I'm not really sure. At least for like, if we want to have good episodes with substance, I think the format is really good, and the people that listen are like good listeners. I'm not sure there's much I would change about what we do, you know?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. No, and it's the format for a reason, you know?
Yeah.
Like NPR wouldn't have had their 15 plus year history without that format having been very effective for what we're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely it's like if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of situation with that. But I mean, I'm asking you these questions and I don't have the answers, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if anybody who's listening has any suggestions, feel free. But I just, you know, I want to be able to put out the best possible content, you want to call it that, for the people who are listening, like how would they derive the most amount of value from what I'm putting out? And I just don't want to ever feel like I'm getting to the point of complacency. I think that's really what it ultimately comes down to. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm phoning it in at any point in time.
Yeah, agreed. So sometimes what I like to kind of see as I'm doing the podcast, when it comes to the conversation between like the care and the actual species talk of the animals versus the more nuanced, more personalized conversation, like if I'm getting close to that hour mark and we're like good on the species talk, I'm like, okay, I did a good job here, and now I could spend like a good amount of time having these little nuanced conversations with the
Sure.
person. Because like too much of one I don't think is good, and that's where I think I've improved as an interviewer, was like getting to the point, getting those questions done, and then being able to have these good conversations and tie it all together. So yeah, just personalized conversation. That's the main gist of it.
Yeah. I think then ultimately kind of getting a read on who you're talking to and how to best get them into a place of being comfortable and, get the information flowing. Because I bet you've experienced it the way that I have, of a guest who, whether they're nervous or they're just not long-winded like the two of us can be. And it's like, all right, now you're working, now you're not only like a podcaster, but you're like a bit of a psychologist as well. Like,
Yeah, I feel bad, and like the episode cut short. I'm like, oh shit, I don't think that was long enough. But it is what it is. Sometimes you get through it and on to the next one.
Yeah, no question. Yeah, man, I'm excited for what the future has to hold for both of us, for podcasting, for everything involved in it. It's a lot of fun. Obviously that, and it just becomes like such a staple of your life. Where like, all right, this is what I do Wednesday night. Like the rest of the week revolves around this being consistent, no matter what. And man, the amount of cool people you get to talk to is just like, you can't beat it. It's really, for me, like to look back at my catalog and think like, if I told myself when I was 16 that I did these 100 podcasts, I'd be like, okay, sure. Okay. Yeah. You totally did that. Oh, wow. I totally believe you. It just, yeah, it's so cool just what this medium can kind of like create in your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, as we kind of wind down here, I want to definitely do a little bit of snake talk. We haven't really gotten into a whole lot of. So yeah, I want to really get into some of the stuff with the Texas rats. You kind of touched on a little bit of this, a little bit of that. What are your plans with the Texas rats for the future? Is it more of like, all right, this is what I want to do with morphs or with colors, combining lines and morphs and whatnot. And like, I want to market these as a pet snake. I want this to become more of like a potential investment type. I mean, within reason.
Yeah.
With Colubrids, there's nothing that, we're not talking ball pythons, but like raise the market to where this snake that's an overlooked animal that's $30 on a table might be up there with some of the other Colubrids, $300-$500 price range, maybe more. What's your vision with them for the future?
Well, speaking of like the market and stuff, like a couple of years ago, I had sold Texas rats for $500-$600.
That's great.
No problem. Some really high quality animals. So when it comes to the morphs and the colors, everything you're talking about, it's all about putting it together and seeing what are the most high quality animals I can make. I have a lot of multi-het animals. There's a lot of morphs at play. I have 5 or 6 definite mutations within my collection alone, that are all combined and intertwined in different ways, and just trying to get the most high quality animals out of that. Now, coming to like, I work a lot with the scaleless animals, the scaleless Texas rats. there's a huge difference between a very meh scaleless Texas rat and a very high quality one. I had a pairing a couple years back. It was a joint pairing, and I'm actually getting that male back this year, so I'm going to be able to see what kind of work he could put in. But I produced some of the best looking scaleless Texas rats I've ever seen, with the coolest patterns, really cool color.
Nice.
And you just don't get snakes like that anymore. There aren't a lot of people who are working this species with the amount of passion that I am. And I'll selfishly say that. Like me, Mamos, my buddy Kevin, we've really put a lot of work in with the species and raising and keeping high quality animals.
Yeah.
Holding back that stuff and continuing to produce with it is going to continue to make that. I know Matt has had some interesting stuff pop up within his pairings, the multi-het stuff. So I'm going to be experimenting a little bit with that this year and seeing what comes out and what new stuff we get. And then it's just about, seeing what happens. And obviously, like most North American rats, a lot of Texas rats are kind of ugly ducklings as babies, just your standard Pantherophis looking animals. But some of them, when they color up, like I was saying, like some of these triple and quad het animals are just insane looking. They're normal visually, but like crazy colors, really interesting patterns, stuff you've never seen before. And even those animals, I think, are like just great. I'd love to have a bunch of those here, or be able to sell a bunch of those and a bunch of people happy with some really good looking Texas rats.
Yeah.
I have had, so I mean, I've sold all the Texas rats I've ever posted on Morph Market.
Okay.
Some of them took longer than others, but it's not like I have stuff sitting on there from 2 years ago, like some people do, honestly. Yeah. I think the key to that is just being able to show off how high quality they are, putting all the information you need. People work against themselves on Morph Market, man. Like, put in the extra 1 to 2 minutes per animal. And granted, we're on a scale that I think actually, I don't know about you. You're on a high scale. I'm on a scale where I could sacrifice the extra 2 minutes to put like good descripms on my animals.
I could definitely do
that. Yeah. Well, you have like a couple hundred. I'm nowhere near, but like I could sacrifice the extra 2 minutes to write a little blurb, write a little something good, and I've never had an issue. And everyone who I've sent a Texas rat to has always really like never had anything bad to say about them. So it's really a big matter of that. And this kind of goes into what I was saying. Like I don't know if I said this at the beginning of the episode or beforehand, like one of my Patreon members asked me, like, with all the clutches you have planned this year, like, do you think you could crash that market? And I'm like, no, I don't think so at all. In fact, I think I'm going to help raise it up. And because that's been my goal, is to bring more light to the species. So goal is to kick ass this year with them. I have the potential for potentially 11 pairings. We'll see if that goes through. Maybe if some animals double clutch, I don't know. But it'll be my biggest year if most of those go the distance.
Okay. So yeah, how commonly do they double clutch? Do they triple clutch? And like, what's a typical clutch size?
Not triple. So like my personal experience breeding, I haven't had a ton of clutches, to be completely honest, but the clutches I've had have always been like good. I've never been that guy to like, I've seen people have like, some people will get like 15 to 20 egg clutches on these guys. I've never had that. I've usually had smaller clutches, bigger eggs. The most I've gotten personally, I think I got 9 back in 2023 in one clutch. And honestly, that was a good bid, and that was a really nice pairing. Got some, a lot of nice animals out of that. So Yeah, I mean, we could be looking at a lot of babies. The potential for double clutching is always there, especially if you're feeding heavily, which after talking to like Dr. Whitman, like that's something I'm really going to focus on this year is like really feeding my females heavy. Like they can take it and they need it. Prevent egg binding, stuff like that. Dr. Whitman's been a wealth of knowledge when it comes to that. So, and I don't want to throw around the term power feeding, but like these females and even the males this year, just in case they go off of food, like as soon as when they come up from brumation, they are getting pounded with food.
Yeah. That's been something that I've been on a steep learning curve with the colubrids as well. Is, you know, with pythons, the complications can come from overfeeding. With colubrids, you're almost looking at more complications from underfeeding. So it's been for me just trying to get to that mindset of like, no, I could really feed the shit out of these girls and it's going to be better. So,
and like some people are like, well, I don't want to make that girl double clutch. Just feed them anyway. And as messed up as this is to say, if you don't want to hatch that many babies, like at worst, you could throw the eggs out when they're laid. Just get the good clutch. Like don't let her be filled with slugs that she could potentially egg bind on. Like just let her pass the good eggs. And if you're overwhelmed, like you're not obligated to keep the eggs. Just let her be healthy and go through her natural cycle, you know?
Yeah, especially if you don't repair and she goes again. Okay, that's her biology telling you something. Like,
yeah,
support it properly. So
yeah, colubrid keepers should not be scared of double clutching. You should kind of lean into it.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Something I've learned.
Yeah, because I've had some spilotes double clutch on me, and I wasn't even really expecting it, and they weren't fertile clutches. I'm like, man, I didn't see them breed again. She just kind of did this. I probably missed out on a good clutch by not having fed her properly during this process.
Well, like even the cockeye can go 3 to 4 clutches, like no problem. And it's like, all right. So
yeah, I mean, it's what they do. I want to go back a little bit to the scaleless. So when you say that you're trying to get, the higher quality scaleless animals, are you talking about the, not only just like color pattern, just appearance? Are you also referring to the percentage of scalelessness, I guess? Because as many, people, if anyone doesn't know, like scaleless Texas rats, it's not a scaleless ball python. Like obviously they have the belly scale, but then they have scales throughout their body as well. Like, is that something you're trying to select for?
So typically, the less scales they have, the better looking they'll be.
Okay.
A lot of times you'll see, like if you breed, I don't know, it depends on, I think lineage has a bit to play into it, but like a weak lineaged het scaleless to a weak lineaged het scaleless, I think is going to make you a very low quality scaleless animal. You're going to have a lot of scales still on there. They're not going to be super bright if those animals don't have the, the right like kind of skin color underneath. But, I took a scaleless anery animal, which is obviously black and white, so you don't see any of that orange that you'd usually get, and I bred it to a scaleless leucistic, and some of those animals, the oranges, the blacks, the whites, were that was the clutch I was talking about. They were just insane, and like you don't know, but the parents were both high quality scaleless animals. And typically when the parents are at that high quality, they're going to make more high quality offspring.
Okay.
In terms of scale count. And that's the problem too. Again, going back to lineage, is just like if they're too lower quality animals that people are breeding, and a lot of these like big facilities that are just mass producing or whatever, like they're going to pump out a bunch of like half-assed animals into the market, which sucks, and it's going to get the species no attention.
So for somebody who is trying to start their own scaleless Texas rat project, I guess then aside from getting animals from you, what should they look for so they know that they're actually getting a high quality? Is it just down to scale count, or are there particular lineages that you look for in the pedigree? What are the different aspects you're looking for?
Yeah. I would say like looking at this, how many scales are on the animal, like you can usually tell if there's a few scales on the body, like I would call that a high quality scaleless. That doesn't mean the color's there though, because you could still get a very drab animal. It just depends what your goals are with the project, what you kind of like to see, because like I talked about, they are so variable phenotypically that you could get so many different looks between both normal scaled animals and normal scaleless animals. And again, my buddy Kevin in the chat, like if someone were looking for good scaleless Texas rat snakes, like I'd hope you're buying from either myself or Kevin. And I mean that both selfishly and sincerely, because for the most part, you're not finding animals of that high quality, or if you do, you don't know what their kind of background is. And just being a good buyer, I like to know where my snakes are coming from.
Sure. No doubt. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. So at this point, how many morphs are there, and what are they?
There's quite a few, and there used to be more back a long time ago. So current one's scaleless. There's albino, like standard albino. There's leucistic. There's anery. There is a lavender albino, or a bell line lavender albino.
Okay.
There's the cadmium morph. There's whatever I have the hell going on with these red Texas rats, which half the people that see them think they're hybrids. I don't know what to think of them, but the story on them is mixed, so I could only go off of what I was told.
Sure.
But I'm gonna work them and see what happens. They look similar to an old morph that used to be called tangerine hypo, which I found out about last week. So now I'm convinced they're that. There used to be there's a Lemke orange hypo, or it's called something along those lines. What else am I forgetting? That's a good gist of them, of what you see in the hobby today. And even some of those you don't see a ton of.
Okay. And are they all recessive?
Yes.
Okay. And then are there any of them that are like exclusively a pattern mutation, where I feel like a lot of those you listed off are all like kind of color mutations? I don't know what the cadmium is. So
cadmium is both color and pattern.
Okay.
They're real interesting animals. The whole story can be found. I believe the website is like cadmiumtexasratsnake.org or something, or .com. The whole backstory is there. The guy paired some really high yellow animals with some like wild caught animals, and out popped this pattern. They have this like really unique as babies. It's like this very broken, jagged pattern. And as they age, they really turn into these bright hypo-y type looking animals. Still have like the steel blue head, but they have the body colors are very yellow and orange, and they lose a lot of the typical like saddle pattern that's typical of Pantherophis. It's kind of all blotched and wonky.
Okay.
It's very interesting.
Huh. Cool. So then I guess aside from that, are you trying to kind of work line breeding projects to get particular patterns within some of these morphs?
Yes. So like a girl I held back from that really nice clutch I talked about a couple of years ago, I named her Hourglass. And she's a visually scaleless animal. She's het for leucistic and anery. I don't really care about the leucistic part on her, but like the pattern on her back, it's literally it looks like a bunch of hourglasses just going down her back.
Cool.
She's a stud. Everyone loves her that sees her. But that would be really cool to kind of recreate it. She got that from her dad. Her dad actually has that pattern a bit, but on her it's a lot more emphasized. So that's cool. And like the very nice high oranges she has on her. So like, you know, you take scaleless animals that are high orange, breed them back to each other. Like you're going to make more high orange animals. And she has a ton of contrast. Like the blacks are super black. The whites are crisp. So yeah. And then combining the morphs too, I think scaleless anery is super cool. It's really awesome looking. I'm not, so I don't like leucistic is so tied into Texas rats that I have it a lot in the collection. I prefer not to hit a ton of leucistics, though. Sure. Pet people enjoy leucistics, so I wouldn't mind having them. In terms of selling them, just I'd personally prefer to not hit as many leucistics.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just kind of like it starts and ends
my goals are. Yeah, all white snake. It kind of takes away from what I want to see within the animals. So, granted, they're cool and a good looking leucistic. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah,
leucistic Texas are classic, but yeah.
Do you have a goal of like a certain amount you want to produce every year, just because you know people are going to want them for pets, even though they're not going to like advance your projects necessarily?
Not necessarily. I think that depends on just there's not a certain number I want. I just want to hit the goals within breeding and seeing what happens with different pairings, seeing the interactions, being able to track lineage and be good about doing that. You know, like one of the biggest things that I give props to in the industry are like the Morelia people, how good they are with lineages. Like, I just don't understand why more segments of the hobby don't do that as well. Like, I want to be able to have, you know, at some point, like have a fourth generation animal that, you know, I own the great grandparent of, and like I bred and produced and got all the way down to this line, and I actually have the proof to show for that, but I don't know.
No, I have the same exact aspirations. Yeah, that's something I say all the time too, is like, you know, that's super admirable what the green tree people do with those pedigrees. I mean, man, in you know, for us in 40 years to be able to trace animals back 50 years, like the amount of gratification I could imagine would come from that would be pretty amazing. So yeah, that's definitely something that I want to do.
And I'm sure people are listening to this and are like, man, this dude is crazy talking about Texas rats like this. But this is what makes me excited. And if there isn't something that's doing that for you, I think you need to go find it real quick.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh, 100%. Yeah, I think like I love seeing that in the hobby, people finding that thing that they're really passionate about, taking the ball and running with it. And it's infectious, man. People get on board with it. Like it's, you know.
Yeah. Like I already know, like, and just from the podcast, the amount I talk about it, like I know I have, people are just waiting for me to produce stuff. I have created a market for Texas rats, and I know people are just sitting on the sidelines waiting for me to create these animals I've been talking about. It. Unfortunately, because of the move, I had a bad year this past year. I didn't hatch a single Texas rat, which sucked. But this year I should really be on the ball and have like I was talking about, a pretty big year with them.
That's awesome. Do you have like wait lists or anything for specific projects, or is it kind of like when it comes, it comes?
Not particularly. Obviously my Patreon group gets like first dibs on stuff, but yeah. Other than that, it gets released to the public. I know people have like said to me like in passing or whatever, like, dude, when you make those, I want them. I'm like, sure thing. But I just posted like the pairing list for this year because I had to kind of revise all of that. And so maybe I'll make that public at some point, especially when stuff starts breeding and like eggs are dropping and stuff. Like I'm not going to count my eggs before they hatch, but once that gets going, I'll probably start some stuff like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I guess where should people keep up with that for when the time comes?
Definitely Instagram. I'm very public with all my breeding and what's going on, so you could stay up to date on the Meteoric Serpents Instagram. Also the podcast, I'll talk about it all the time. Colubrid Corruption, YouTube, and wherever else you listen.
Hell yeah. And then yeah, I guess since you've mentioned it, shout out the Patreon as well.
Yeah, Meteoric Serpents, Colubrid Corruption Patreon. If you're looking to get corrupted, if you're passionate about colubrids, I'm really just trying to grow a community of hardcore colubrid people who can learn and collaborate with each other and have good conversations. Even if you don't want to, like, I mean, I'd hope, you just want to come and support the show at the very least, but like, I'm really trying to build that good community that you don't get in all of these public forums. And I hate to say that, like, it's behind a paywall or whatever, but like, if I could be the foster to that, and it's not a Facebook group, it's not your typical Facebook group or just any group you can join. I really want to build something cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, you're laying the groundwork, man, and you're doing it. Like that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize is like you gotta lay the good foundation for everything to kind of grow from there. And yeah, especially in the younger generation, man. Not a lot of people doing it the way you're doing it. So I give you mad props.
Try my best. Thanks, man.
No question. Well, man, we've eclipsed this 2-hour mark here. I know you're on the East Coast, so I don't want to keep you all night. I really appreciate you giving me the time tonight, man. It was awesome to have you on the show finally.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I enjoy being on the guest side and having these good conversations. You're a good host, so I knew we would have a good conversation tonight.
Yeah, no question. Well, I guess, man, thank you once again. Thank you to everybody who was listening live tonight. Thank you to everybody who was on the audio, wherever you're getting the podcast. Appreciate everybody, and I'll see you all back here next week for a new episode.